You're standing in the middle of an endless acacia field, or a meadow literally bursting with color. The scent is intoxicating, intense, almost heavy. The sound around you promises everything, that deep, continuous hum of thousands of bees working. In your head, you're already doing the math. You multiply the number of hives by the expected kilograms, you project the income, and you feel satisfied. And then, extraction day comes, and you get a cold shower. The buckets are half empty. The scale hasn't moved for days, even though nature around it seemed to be blooming in full force. Where did the problem start? Did the bees fail? Is the queen poor? No. The problem isn't in what you see with your eyes. The problem is in what's happening at an invisible, microscopic level where plant biology collides with the physics of terrain. Today, we're deconstructing one of the biggest misconceptions in modern beekeeping, the idea that blooming automatically means a honey flow. Today, we analyze the invisible barriers standing between a luxurious blossom and your extractor. We need to begin with a basic truth that is often difficult to accept. Beekeeping is too often viewed exclusively through botany, through what we see above the ground. However, for beekeeping to be profitable, we must understand the physiology of nectar secretion. Remember this, blooming is the plant's reproductive phase, but nectar secretion is an energetic expense. A plant is not an altruist. It will not treat bees with nectar if it is struggling for its own survival. This brings us to the first major barrier, soil composition. Let's take the king of our nectar flow as an example. Acacia, Robinia pseudo-acacia. It has very specific soil requirements. It demands light, sandy, warm, and well-drained soils. What happens if you've placed your apiary on heavy, cold, clay soil? Even if the forest is dense, even if flowering is abundant, nectar secretion can be minimal or completely absent. In such conditions, the root system struggles. The plant spends its energy maintaining basic metabolism in an unfavorable substrate instead of converting that energy into nectar to attract pollinators. So a dense forest is not a guarantee. It is only potential, and the soil can cancel that potential entirely. If soil is the foundation, then microclimate is the key that unlocks a honey flow. There is a very narrow window in which plants actually work for us. Academic data and field practice agree here. The optimal temperature for nectar secretion in most plants ranges between 20 and 30 degrees Celsius, with relative humidity above 60%. What happens when we move outside that balance? Phenomena occur that the eye cannot see, but the scale certainly can feel. The first enemy is dry wind. Even if the temperature is ideal, warm, dry wind acts like a hairdryer. It physically dries out nectar in shallow blossoms before a bee even reaches it. The bee lands, spends time, and finds nothing. The second enemy is terrain. We often choose valleys and depressions to protect hives from wind, but there we encounter a trap called temperature inversion. Cold air is heavier and settles at the bottom of valleys, creating cold pockets that immediately stop nectar gland activity. Your colleague, whose apiary is just 50 meters above you on a sunny slope, may be extracting record yields while you, at the bottom of the valley, stare at empty frames. Those 50 meters of elevation difference can be the line between stagnation and profit. Let's go further. Imagine soil and climate are perfect. Is that the end of the equation? No. Now the physics of flight enters the picture. A bee is a biological machine that consumes fuel. That fuel is honey. There is a point at which a bee spends more energy flying to the nectar source and back than it manages to bring into the hive. That is called energetic inefficiency. Two factors are critical here. The first is wind. If the apiary is exposed, the bee must fight air currents. Every knot of wind has a cost. In strong wind, a bee can spend up to 50% more energy just to stay airborne. It brings nectar, but burns much of it on the way back. The second factor is carrying capacity. Every location, no matter how rich, has its limit. If too many hives are concentrated in one area, whether yours or your neighbor's, the tragedy of the commons occurs. Resources are divided among too many mouths. Bees fly longer, search more, expend more energy looking for additional sources, and the result is a familiar scenario. Bees appear hyperactive, constantly entering and leaving, but the scale doesn't move. And finally, we must address timing and modern risks. We often witness a phenomenon called a meadow without an army. Because of climate shifts, springs are warmer and nature explodes earlier than we are used to. The main flow begins, but your colonies are still in a development phase. You have food on the table, but no one to eat it. That asynchrony between plant phenology and colony development is one of the most common causes of missed opportunities on otherwise perfect locations. Additionally, there is the invisible enemy of the modern era: pesticides. We're not speaking only about mass bee kills, we're speaking about sublethal doses, small amounts that do not kill the bee immediately, but neurologically impair it. It becomes disoriented. It finds the nectar source, but forgets the way home. You see bees flying out, you see blossoms producing, but colony population declines and honey is absent. That is the silent erosion of an apiary. So what is the conclusion of this analysis? Location is not chosen with the eyes. Landscape can deceive. The right location is chosen through knowledge of geology, understanding wind patterns, reading microclimates, and through brutally honest evaluation of your own colonies. A good yield is never an accident. It is the precise intersection of the queen's genetic potential, colony health, and a perfectly timed microclimatic nectar window. If this analysis helped you see your terrain even slightly differently, then we've achieved our goal. I invite you to share your experience in the comments. Have you faced that situation where everything around you seems to be producing nectar, but the scale remains silent? Your experience is a valuable part of this professional discussion. Subscribe to the channel because in the next episode, we go deeper. We will analyze how location directly influences brood development, because even the best nectar flow in the world cannot compensate for a colony that isn't ready. Thank you for your attention, and may it be a honey season.